Okay, this video sets up for the module of this phonetics course about the physiology of the vocal apparatus. So in this module, we're going to look at the full physiological system of speech production. I'll give the whirlwind overview in a second and get into the details in the following videos, but I want to pause a moment here just to remember that the speech system is just one of the two main modalities that human languages use, the other one being gesture. Movement of the hands, the arms, the face, and so on. There are many human languages, collectively known as sign languages, that primarily use this other modality. Our course has a focus on spoken language, but that isn't because spoken language is inherently more human or more languagey than sign language. It's simply the focus of this course. And I point this out because through much of the history of linguistics, there's been a tendency to treat spoken language as more core to human language as a phenomenon because it's more common. It's not more core. Evidence is mixed at best around which came first in the initial emergence of human language, and the evidence is quite clear that those whose primary language is signed are participating just as much as in the human phenomenon of language as those whose primary language is vocal. Okay. So in this module, in examining the physiology used to produce spoken language, we're going to break things down into three subsystems. There's the subglottal system, which consists of all the anatomy that generates pulmonic airflow. That's the main way that air is moved around in the production of speech. It includes the lungs, the bronchi, the trachea, and various muscles and ligaments that facilitate the movement that pushes air around. We'll look at the locations, properties, and functions of these various structures. Then secondly, we have the larynx, this little structure that's shielded by cartilage. It is the smallest of the three systems, physically speaking, but it has a lot of moving parts that work together to create a delightful variety of vocal effects. Then finally, we have what the textbook calls the vocal tract, or the supraglottal system. And it's that portion of speech anatomy that we're most familiar with. It consists of the pharynx, the oral cavity, the nasal cavity, and the various muscles and affiliated bits in there. I do want to comment briefly on the terms being used for these three subsystems. Personally, I think it would be cleaner to call them the sublaryngeal, laryngeal, and supralaryngeal. It introduces some clean uniformity to the naming. The glottis, after all, which is used in the term subglottal, it's just one spot in the larynx, and it isn't even strictly speaking the lowest spot, so the term subglottal is imprecise. And vocal tract, as the textbook calls the uppermost of these three systems, is sometimes also used to refer to the whole thing, all of the physiology of speech, so that's even more imprecise. Anyway, I'm not going to make a big deal of it here, but do watch for imprecision in your own writing and communication about this, especially in a technical context. This module traditionally involves a fair bit of memorization, but because I use open book exams, the pressure to memorize is a bit less intense. I think that should help facilitate the learning process, but it is still worth packing as much of this information as possible into your head, because that's where you'll need to do all the reasoning about structures and where you need to understand the various issues around speech production that arise from the physiology that it's based on. And, these issues that we'll be discussing in class and that you will, in fact, get tested on. Yeah, do some memorization, hopefully in a relatively stress-free way. And the next video, we'll dive into the first of these systems.